everyone. Tuesday noon my time. Well, almost. How are you doing? Good to see you. Let me turn that down so I don't have the echo of all time in my head. All right. Well, so last night, wow, what a trip. I had to make a hasty exit from my our show with Dr. Albers because right, what you don't see, this is my office, and over here, yeah, that way, is the outside wall that has windows and a door. And when this freak hailstorm came up out of nowhere, in fact, the all the channels were talking about it. It was an outflow boundary from a thunderstorm about 75 miles to the northeast. When that outflow boundary came in, it just happened to hit right where I live in my area. And wow, I mean, golf ball size hail. And what I actually heard, we only got a couple of them, were about the size of a tennis ball. So anyway, and we were talking about hail. Oh, hail. So hello, everyone. How are y'all doing? Good to see you, Knowledge Seeker, Lore, good to see you. Hey, Brian, how you doing, folk? Always enjoy Brian. Sherry, how are you doing? By the way, this Friday night, going to have Sherry Spears on, and we're going to bring and talk about some positive things. And I like Sherry's approach, how she approached nature and us together, humanity. So going to get Brian back on. I want to hear about his trip. And Brian, heard about your mama passing on, and I'm sure she's got all the answers. Hopefully, that's what we all get in that transcendent. So welcome to everyone. The title of today was, have you eaten your cup of pharmaceuticals today? Yeah, I know. I've known about this. I did a couple of videos. I did a video called World War Water. And it was dealing with the fact that if you look at the pharmaceuticals alone, let's take hydrocarbons out, petrochemicals out, other contaminants out. And if we looked at nothing but the pharmaceuticals, it has penetrated every water source. And I include Antarctica on that. So now people say, well, you can dig deep. Yes, you can. Absolutely. But if you take what has fallen now, and if there's any melting, which there's very little, mostly in the very cold regions, it's evaporation, not so much melting, but it will begin to seep into. I have a little headline I want to show you. I thought that this was really curious. I'm going to share my screen here. Check this out. So this was on yahoo.com on their news. Antidepressants change songbirds' courtship rituals. Now, the interesting thing about this story is that they have been watching this, and they're these lovable songbirds. Jesse Colin Young has a great song, Songbird. But anyway, I digress. Is because they're picking up the pharmaceuticals in the water supply, and they become more aggressive. Yes, imagine that. They give you something to make you not depressed, but then the side effect is that you become violent. There you go. Interesting story on this. And I think that this is actually alluding to a much bigger problem. And that is the animal kingdom as a whole and the plant kingdom. What mankind has done is that we've contaminated all the kingdoms. We've contaminated ours. We've contaminated the animal kingdom. We've contaminated the plant kingdom. Look what we're going to be talking here in a few minutes about the oceans. So this tells you that it's no longer just us. Wish it was, but it's not. We are really doing a terrible, terrible job as stewards of this planet. So I put together a presentation. You knew I was going to. So allow me to, excuse me, as I exit one program. Okay, so here we go. So the title of this little presentation is How Much Oil Are You Drinking in a Day? Now, it seems on the surface to be ludicrous because none of us would drink oil. It'd kill us. Might be something there. We wouldn't do it. It's harmful to us. But here's the deal. The petrochemical industry, if this industry was to collapse, it would probably put us back into the Stone Age. We don't need the grid to go down. Petrochemicals alone. And when you see the accumulation of these hydrocarbons in our environment, folks, as the great movie Houston, we got a problem. Because Earth, we've got a problem here, and it's a big one. So some uses of oil and gas in everyday life. Now, I know many of us think that we live healthily. We try to make sure our environment is good. We try to get ourselves spiritually centered. But you know what? If you're sitting in the middle of a cesspool, it's still going to stink. So today there are over 6,000 products refined from natural gas and crude oil. Sunglasses, computer, fertilizers, the roads we drive on, millions of chemicals. I mean, the list just is, you can't list them all. All things plastic, your telephone, your shoes, paint, toys, the list goes on and on and on. Here's the deal, folks. As you know, I try to simply bring out sometimes those things that are so obvious, but we never stop and question. Now, I've done and will continue to do more on artificial intelligence because this is only another piece of evidence I'm putting before the courts and the jury. And you are the jury. So am I. Here's the deal, folks. You are what you eat. Now, our brain, besides being electric, is heavily based on chemicals. You get a chemical imbalance in your brain and it will drive you crazy. It can make you psychotic. It can cause you to have very odd behavior. And what I'm proposing here today, remember, and when you'll see at the end of this presentation, how much you and I are consuming every day of these, and the baseline hydrocarbons. By the way, you can see my shirt says I am a carbon-based life form, as all of you are as well. Most things on this planet are carbon-based. What do you think we're doing to us when we begin to jack with the basic chemical foundation of our existence? I can assure you these bodies were never meant to be absorbing hydrocarbons. Just not. There's enough plastic that has been produced over the industry's lifetime to cover the earth 100 feet in this stuff. These are hydrocarbons. Now, hydrocarbons, when they begin to break down into some very nasty carcinogens. Look at what you cook. I challenge you to go into your kitchen, go and look at your cooking utensils. If they are non-stick, they are hydrocarbons. It gets worse on this case, but this is just one. Like chewing bubble gum, candy, anything that has the elasticity, particularly in a product like bubble gum, guess what? Petrochemicals. Besides the sugar. So this is a nice little graph, and we're going to get deeper into it, of what we consume in a day. So you have clean clothes. Well, you're going to need to wash them. Now, some people will say, well, I use organic soap. Good for you. But we're not talking about you individually. We're talking about you as a part of a species. Candles. Yeah. Plastic surfaces in your house. Outdoor clothing. Anything that is water repellent. Yeah. Sports clothing. You women who like to wear the spandex and the shiny stuff, all you're doing is basically wearing petrol. You just might as well smear your body in oil, crude oil, because that's in essence what you're doing. Again, I talked about non-stick pans, yogurt containers. Yeah, that probiotic that you need to take, ladies. Yeah. How about your plastic bottle? Yeah. Kitchen surfaces, water cans. Oh, your plug-in sockets, your floor covering. And we've just started. So, common sense, we all are immersed in this chemical soup. Oh, and we don't even need to talk about the electromagnetic soup. We'll do more of that, but not on this program. Beware of pesticides. All pesticides, my folks, are in fact, petrochemical base. So let's just look at here, because all of our food is got in it petrochemicals, hydrocarbons, et cetera, et cetera. Absorption through the skin, contact, especially the eyes. You can inhale the fumes. And by the way, any of you home gardeners or enthusiasts for your ground yards that you use Roundup, other type of weed controls. Yeah. Accidental swallowing while eating, drinking, or smoking. The skin on various parts. So not good. Take a look at this. The toxic chemical exposure we have in the air. How many of us have the ability to sample our air each day? Now, you rely on, a government agency to give you the report, but you never get the report. How many of you have actually seen a sampling of what your local air is? I haven't. So water, ingestion. I brought some examples. This is a can of V8 juice. It's in an aluminum can. But what I found sadly about this is there's a coating on the inside. Yep, you guessed it. Food, we're going to talk about this. The soil, again, ingesting, inhalation, skin contact. And then we think about the number of products. And ladies, your makeup, again, you might as well just go out there and get crude oil and just be smearing it on your face, because that's what you're doing. So you can begin to see how the different areas of your body begin to absorb more. Now, the genitalia area, We never think about this, but you think about your undergarments that you have washed, and if it's in a commercially sold product, yeah. So you have heat that's concentrated in one part of the body all day long, and your clothes, particularly with this close contact to these private parts on you, yeah. So let's just take a look at the average home. So I always like to start at the top. So if you've got a roof, and unless it's a concrete or other type of stone type of material, you have composition tiles. All those are oil-based. So you have it right there at the top. And remember, anytime you have direct sunlight coming in, you're having a chemical reaction. Skylights, the plastic material that it's covered with, again. And the bad thing about the skylights is, remember, unless it's well ventilated in your home, you have a pocket of very nasty gas up there. Not recommended to breathe it. So all your electronics and appliances, all your personal items and clothing, your bedrooms and closets, gardens and yards, your kitchen, storage area, bathrooms, furnace, laundry areas, furniture, carpeting, living room and dens, garages, and vehicles. In fact, what's the alarming thing is that I'm amazed we live as long as we do. I'm not surprised to be seeing the cancers and everything else. No matter how healthy you think you are, you're fooling yourself, because you're just as poisoned as the rest of us. You can exercise, you can run. Go ahead. I used to be a runner all the time until my knees became a point where I couldn't run anymore. Yeah, deep breaths, everybody. Let's continue. So let's continue just to see your credit cards. Hey, you wear contact lenses? Yeah. School supplies, makeup, tires, cooking utensils, everything in your kitchen that is in plastic. We saturate ourselves in this stuff. But these are the monikers of the modern 21st century lifestyle. There's nothing to be alarmed here. We have government agencies that overlook these things, and they would tell us if there was something that needed to be addressed here. Ladies, all I have to say to you, at what cost? Seriously? Oh, make sure you brush your teeth twice a day, because if you're buying a commercial product, even if it says it's organic, guess what? The container itself has contaminated everything in it. Smile. Your synthetic fibers. Now, unless you have 100% cotton, and then that's a problem there, you're wearing oil. Seriously. Yeah, I can't see the chat room, but I can only imagine. There are over 6,000 products that are used in your life right now from natural gas and crude oil. We don't talk about the medical side of this, but virtually all pharmaceuticals, you got it, petrochemical base. So take a look at this. So I wanted to see if there was a graph that would begin to see how all these hydrocarbons are, how we consume them, whether we are intentional or not. And as you can begin to see how everything is impacted. It's like this. If you have a 5-gallon bucket of water, and you put 1 drop of red dye in that container, you've contaminated the whole container, whether you can see it or not. And regardless of how much you think it's been diluted. And that's what they do on a lot of these air samplings. They'll give you parts per billion, parts per million. And of course, you're depending on the person who did that wasn't being paid by a chemical company. But you look down into all of this, and this is a complicated chart. I looked at this and, I went through it and I said, well, we're screwed. And it's everywhere. How many times have you traveled and you've been sitting on a plane and you smell that Jet A grade jet fuel? All have. It's like just taking a shot, Here we go. And remember, you have dealing with chemicals now, you have heat issues. The hotter, the colder, chemicals react differently to different temperatures. But the thing about chemicals, they all have a tendency to basically transfer themselves into something else. I just wanted to put this up because, again, all of this, all of it is in our homes, in our places of work. You move into a new office building and you smell what we call the fresh smell, particularly of the carpet. All you're doing is smelling, petrochemicals. Medicine. Your toiletries. I mean, come on, folks. You could say, well, I'm going to go live in a cave, and maybe you might be able to get something, but the problem is, as I'm about to show you, the soil, the water, and the air is contaminated. There is no more clean air on planet Earth. That's another startling fact. There is no more clean air on planet Earth. Just as there is no longer any safe, drinkable, fresh water in lakes, rivers, streams. But in the United States, there is no place. And look at this. Tennis shoes, socks, soccer balls, your paint, bicycle, candles, as we've already seen. And I'm just reiterating through different graphs here. There's no escape from this. It is everywhere. I mean, you might as well say that humanity is a drug addict. We're hooked and we're killing ourselves. Is our food killing us? Biomagnification. If any individual continuously eats contaminated food, it will accumulate in the body. All individuals are part of the food chain as a result. Toxins stored in the fats and oils pass on one trophic level to the next trophic level, The higher up the food chain, the more concentrated the pesticides call biomagnifications. If we didn't have pesticides, the insects would eat us to starvation. But here's the problem. Every pesticide is petrochemical based. And in developing countries where food becomes even more critical, they don't have the infrastructure like the United States. When literally the individuals out there farming a hectare of land, this is what they're doing. Now, you may think that the picture on the right is the right way to go. The problem is it's a trick question. Your refrigerator is a morgue because virtually everything we consume is contaminated. You see more and more people having kidney disease, even our First Lady, Melania Trump. The elite are not exempt. And look what it does to us. This is what we have accomplished in the last 10,000 years of written history. Marvel at our genius. Oh, yeah. Well, Wayne, what else is the solution? Well, I got a feeling that this is not. And we want to know why childhood cancers, exotic diseases are increasing epidemically. All modern man has done is substituted one genocide for a new. This is a fast food genocide. These pesticides. And the problem is, I can speak only here in America, but in America, suburbia, we live in a toxic wasteland. I can't control what my neighbor does right next to me. He can go out there and use Roundup and everything else. There's not a damn thing I can do about it. But if I'm standing downwind, guess who's going to be impacted by it? And you look at this, how serious this truly is. I said that there's no more clean air. There isn't. Whatever we put into the soil has two places it goes. It will go down into the aquifer, the water table, and or through evaporation and through wind erosion, be put right back up into the atmosphere and then begin to interact with the chemical reactions that are already taking place in the troposphere. And if it reaches as high as the ionosphere, you have a whole new set of problems, sweetheart. As Ricky would say, Lucy, you got some explaining to do. So, yeah, you don't hear about leaching. You know, when I built a commercial building, the thing that we had to get was that we had to get what they called a perk test, you know, to see how much the soil could absorb. But listen, there's no way you escape this. None. The runoff. There's no place in the United States, and I dare say probably in the industrialized world, that is exempt. We don't talk about deposition. But again, it's the chemical reaction with photosynthesis. And if you have a contaminated leaf saturated with hydrocarbons, petrochemicals, there's going to be a chemical reaction in that process. As I said, you can see why there is no longer any fresh water, clean water. The water tables in the United States, all the way to the aquifers, are not only contaminated with hydrocarbons, pesticides, but again, pharmaceuticals. This is a graph that shows you how this works. And so it goes off, runs off into streams, which become tributaries, which flows into rivers, which flow into the oceans. We were talking yesterday about the red algae plume. Today, and I find it so, I think the networks listen to our shows here, because today we covered 4 subjects. Every one of them were covered in national news. And this one that particularly about this red algae bloom. It's the Gulf of Mexico, folks. It's bad. They had the governor, Rick Scott of Florida, admitting the state can't do anything about it. It's because what we've done to it. We've done this. This is not nature. This is not natural. We've done this. And they said that it used to be that the season would probably be a week. Now it's the entire summer going into the fall. And if it continues to stay as warm as it is, these algae blooms aren't being killed off. Let's talk about the ocean pollutants. This is really bad. Now, as you can see behind there on my board, I finally circled them. Every ocean now has a garbage patch. And this is bad, folks. Here's one picture. It's twice the size of the state of Texas. And you can see what happens once they get into these gyres. And this is what's happened. The Indian Ocean, the South Atlantic, the North Atlantic, the North Pacific, all now contaminated. And the problem is it doesn't stay at the surface. Depending on the density and the compound of the plastic itself, it can sink all the way to the bottom. Folks. So now you have the fish. The fish used to feed us. Fish would give their lives and give us the best food that we could have. This is what we've done to them in return. I look at this and I don't know whether to be pissed off or to cry. No island, and I was surprised by this, no island in the world is not contaminated with plastic. Every island, regardless of where it is, the Arctic to the Antarctic, every island. We did this. If we were standing before the courts of the supreme leader, folks, we're going to the gallows. This is criminal. I don't care who, I'm a part of this. I'm to blame, as you are. We live lives of affluency, and it doesn't matter whether you're lower class, middle class, whatever. Our lifestyles compared to 100 years ago, all of us live as kings. But look what we're doing. This is insanity, folks. And the thing about the Pacific, now you got the Fukushima radioactive contamination now in this crap. It's stuck. It's changing. The very compound, the chemical compounds of this biomass. I mean, seriously, this is what the world does. We go out into the oceans and dump this. How to avoid cancer-causing plastics? Well, let's just start. Number one, all soft drink bottles, mineral water, fruit juices, containers, and cooking oil. Number two, high-density propylene. Milk jugs, cleaning agents, laundry detergents, bleaching agents, shampoo, bottles, washing, and shower soaps. Polyvinyl chloride. trays for sweets, fruits, plastics, packing, bubble foil, all food foils to wrap the food stuff. Yeah, saran wrap, plastic wrap. Yeah, we wrap our foods with this stuff. Then we put it in the refrigerator, and imagine what gets to happen. It's marinating it. Low density polyethylene, crushed bottles, shipping bags, resistant sacks, and most of the wrappings we use. Polypropylene, furniture, consumer luggage, toys, as well as bumpers, linings, and external borders of all cars. Polystyrene, toys, hard packing, refrigerators, trays, cosmetics, bags, costume jewelry, CD cases, vending cups. And then we get number 7, all other plastics, including acrylic, polycarbonate, polyacetate, fibers, nylon, and fiberglass. Again, choose your poison. Which one are you consuming? You know, the chemicals companies promised to change the world with their plastics, and they did. They systematically are destroying the soil, water, air, and our bodies. Yeah, I know. Wasn't that fun? I mean, you just, I don't know. How do you internalize this individually? I haven't been in the chat room, and I don't know how many people are here. Well, there's 131 of us. You know, most people won't watch this because they don't want to live in reality. They want to live in denial. They'll just give mental ascension to it and move on. But the fact is what's killing us. Right now, every one of us, if they would develop the blood test for us, you'd be shocked. You're dying. I'm dying. If you have children, we are in essence killing them. It's everywhere. And that's kind of my whole point here. The whole reason for this show is a dose of hardcore reality. We can't get away from it. In all of these hydrocarbons, remember, they're constantly letting off gas, a chemical. Doesn't stop. Well, Gary, your spring-fed well is contaminated, my friend. I don't know how to tell you. There is no fresh, safe drinking water. It's a myth. If you think that you have an artesian well, the fact is all water in the United States, particularly, I don't know about other countries, is contaminated. That's a shame. So let's see, the air is contaminated. There is no more fresh air. There isn't any more good soil. That's just the fact. The reason why you have to use more and more fertilizers is that because the soil is dying, and in many cases already dead. I was going to add that on, but I knew it would take another 15 minutes. And I know that was already depressing as it was. But the fact of the matter is the soil of this planet is dying. And then you have the perfect trifecta, the water. The water is contaminated. There is no longer fresh, safe drinking water from a natural source. So, yeah, happy Tuesday. Listen, I know it's difficult, and I don't have any answers on this. It's overwhelming when you look at it because it's gone so far. It's progressed to the point we don't know how to clean it up. And you can talk about global warming. You know, when I hear people talk about global warming, I tell them to get your head up out of your ass. Because the fact of the matter is, we don't understand the dynamics of it. Man has so little to do with temperature. Whereas man, in this case, has contaminated his environment. The problem I have with the global warmists, you know, that are doing all the fear porn, is that they never get down into the facts. They never talk about the cosmology of its impact. None of the models you see, any of the United States, UN, all these people with the Paris Accord, the whole thing, it's a pseudoscience. They don't have any facts. We know that the algorithms were contaminated when they were bought off back in the Obama administration, and everything that came forth out of that is nothing more than disinformation, fake news. And I'll challenge anyone that tells me man is directly contributing to global warming. They can't. But if we talk about the solar wind, the cosmic wind, and we talk about how radiation begins to heat up natural environments, now we can have a discussion, but I digress. So I would say, just by what I presented today, I would probably say that each one of us are probably consuming, well, let's just say the average person eats 1 pound of food a day. Now, sometimes it's much more, obviously. But I would say within that 1 pound of food, of bulk food, whatever it may be, that we have 16 ounces. Each ounce has 32 grams. I would probably say that the average person is probably consuming about 200 grams of petrochemical raw oil, not raw oil, but the equivalency every day. How many would think on that? Yeah. You can't, you know, that's how you look at it. And I took an inventory in my kitchen and I just walked away disgusted. I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, if this was a virus, I mean, it's done one. I mean, everything is in plastic in some form of hydrocarbon. It's crazy. 28 grams, is that what it is, Don? 28 grams, 28.32. When I used to sell pot, I always gave a little bit more. Anyway, that was many, many years ago, folks, decades ago. But yes, you're absolutely correct. We are still eating raw oil, and that's what it comes down to. And I don't like the idea that I'm consuming elevated levels of estrogen. You know, and that's just the thing. When you urinate and you flush your toilet, that goes through the septic systems. If you're with the city, you're hooked up to the municipal sewer system. That then goes and is transported to a holding area where they call it a water treatment plant. We have the ability to filter the water out of basically heavy particles, human waste. But what we do not have is the ability through urine. And you can imagine that if you live in a community like I live, about 125,000 people, they're flushing their toilets on average 5 times a day. So they're urinating 5 times a day. That becomes compounded. And now you see the magnitude of the problem. Yeah, I had a lot of good customers, Emma. But anyway, yeah. So there you go, folks. It's nuts. Now, before I leave you, I have one other little dose of reality. To get right back down to this. So I have told you and have postulated many times on this program that we have another problem, AI. It's a fact. Check this out. If you don't think it's getting bad, then ponder this. Google consumes 1/3 of our digital minds. 1/3. Again, if this was a battlefield and we were fighting this, it would be time for us to have, as I used to say back in the day, we'd have to have a come to Jesus meeting because we're getting our butts kicked. Folks, when you allow one company this type of power, this type of mind control over you, this is a god. In fact, I challenge anyone, I'll bring you on if you want to disprove me on this. This is why I'm telling you this is our modern God. 100 years from now, this will be God. Flat out telling you. No religion will be able to compete with it. Look at this. It's mind-boggling, folks. This is the ultimate mind control. And it does get worse. So now you have scanning technology. See, folks, go back and look at my videos. All of it's tying together. I haven't posted the last part of the digital surrogates because I want you to show you that there are more and more articles coming out validating all the shows that I've done. And for those who have a religious core, it's been very difficult. They run screaming from this. We all should run screaming from this. But here's the point. There is so many private companies now that are involved that have you. They own you. We walk around in a mirage and an illusion thinking that we have free choice and we're making decisions based upon our own particular wants or needs. Very few of us can do that anymore. And here's the point. As facial recognition, because AI is demanding this, and as it begins to deploy the net, the question of this article was, who owns your biodata? You don't. You know, I did one of the videos. Should you copyright your soul before you go? I was serious on that. None of us have taken the initiative to protect our digital selves. But yet, by our ignorance, as we just so happily just said, go on, because, oh, we like it. We've got to have our device, you know, I got to have my device. I got to know, oh, my Snapchat, I got to talk on Messenger, I got to text. And that's where we are. This is what I'm trying to point out, folks. When I saw this picture, it perfectly represented what I'm trying to show you. You are no longer you. You're going to die. And they're going to help you to die quicker. Nothing you can do to stop that. They've already assured that aspect. But what you're not digging, this is you. They've already prepared it. You're going to have a long, good life after you're dead. It's not going to be, you're not going to enjoy this. You may be watching yourself in the spiritual realm or whatever realm we go to and probably freaking out, realizing that your digital surrogate has now assumed you. Yeah, I know. It gets depressing, doesn't it? But what do you do? Yeah, it's weird stuff, isn't it? And the problem I have is that I helped create this crap. You know, I remember back in 1998 when we were discussing what e-commerce was going to be. And I remember the analysts from, Morgan Stanley, Price Waterhouse, all the brokerage houses that we would present before. And I remember seeing these Wall Street analysts and the brokers there, private equity guys. And I can remember them say back there in 1998, this will never happen. We told them the eventuality is that the brick and mortar would go away. Now, we had no idea that it would migrate to a smartphone. We really didn't. We weren't really sure where it was at. I can remember being in meetings with Michael Dell, and we'd have these brainstorming sessions. How is this going to happen? Now I can look back 20 years and I can see it. And if what I have seen happen in 20 years, if you know anything about the exponentiality of technology, it's freaking scary. Anyway, go back to the woods and tires and glass bottles. Yeah, they're probably mad at me now. Yeah. So anyway, folks, I was going to do this tonight, but we are expecting the same thing that happened last night. And quite frankly, my dog was freaked out as long as with my wife, and I wasn't being too happy about it either. So putting this out there, join me next on Friday night. I'm going to have Sherry Spears on. Thursday night, obviously the radio show, and I'll probably do another show tomorrow. I think that this really just needs to be continued, brought out. And I think maybe we'll focus in on the dead soil. You know, as I was doing this, I came across this article and I did not realize that our soil is dying. And that's alarming. We're artificially stimulating the soil by adding chemicals to it. But the natural process that the earth has done for as long as the earth has been here, well, we've altered that. I don't know. It's weird, isn't it? Please email me, Matt. Email is down on the bottom. Any hail damage? Fortunately, just some trees. A dent or two on the siding, but nothing compared to what it sounded like. I swear, it sounded like it was incoming. So thank you for asking. Dennis, thank you. Thank you. Thank you to all of you. Appreciate your time. And, I enjoy reading the comments. It's by discussions like this. I wish we could live in an environment and a culture where we could have forums in the public where we could talk amongst ourselves and exchange ideas on an intellectual basis. But we live in a society where you can't do that. We have to be in enclaves like this that allows us to have a commonality of thought. Just a moment here, I digress. I was reading an article on China, how they're they're really coming down on all religion, Christian, Muslims, Hindus, all of them. And the thing about Xing, what he is most afraid of, he's a Maoist, is his whole reality, his world is about mind control. Who controls the thought? And the reason why religion is so reprehensible to him and his philosophy is that religion steals thought. And if you're going to steal the thought of the individual, it should be the state and not the religion. And as a result, they're cracking down on that. It was a really interesting story. Check it out. Brian, you're a good man. I appreciate it. Wayne's World, yes. Folks, thank you again. I just speak peace to all of you, appreciate you. And, I don't know. Listen, I guess I made a comment when I ended the show yesterday afternoon is that, well, I think we're going to be okay. And someone emailed me and it cracked me up. They said, but Wayne, you said none of us get out of alive. So I'll end it with this. None of us are going to get out of this alive. So maybe within that, there is a certain peace. I'll close it with this. Matthew Broderick and Marlon Brando did a great movie called The Freshman. One of my favorites. I knew the director and what have you. But anyway, there is a perfect line that Clark, that's Matthew Broderick, who's playing the character, when he realizes his situation, and it says, there's a certain peace in knowing when you're totally screwed. Because when you realize you're totally screwed, it's like, okay, what else can they do? I'm totally screwed anyway. So maybe we'll take the solace that if we're totally screwed, well, we might as well go out smiling and having good conversation, good fellowship, and smile. All right, folks, be good to yourself. See you tomorrow, if not sooner. All right, we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.